Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. The apostles said to the Lord, "Increase our faith." The Lord replied, "If you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you would say to this mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it would obey you. Who among you would say to your servant, who has just come in from plowing or tending sheep in the field, 'Come here immediately and take your place at table'? Would he not rather say to him, 'Prepare something for me to eat. Put on your apron and wait on me while I eat and drink. You may eat and drink when I am finished'? Is he grateful to that servant because he did what was commanded? So should it be with you. When you have done all you have been commanded, say, 'We are unprofitable servants. We have done what we are obliged to do.'" The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
You are unprofitable servants. How did that feel? I didn't say it, Deacon said it. Actually, Jesus said we are supposed to say it about ourselves. I'm supposed to say that. I'm an unprofitable servant. Feels like a punch in the gut. But the reality is it's basically the punchline of what Jesus has been teaching for a whole month. Started 4 weeks ago when we heard him say, "Renounce your supposed possessions," and he did that again in a really striking way, saying you must hate mother, father, brother, sister, meaning they're not yours, they're mine. You've received them as a gift. Don't act like they belong to you. Act like they're a gift to you. And then the prodigal son took all of his father's possessions as if they were his and did what he wanted with his father's possessions. And then 2 weeks ago, the dishonest steward used his master's possessions in a better way than we use our master's possessions, God's gifts. And finally, last week, we heard about the rich man who didn't use God's gifts and possessions that were given to him to help Lazarus. So Jesus has been priming the pump to get us ready to be prepared to hear this hard message today, that we are totally unprofitable servants. So where do we start? How do we parse this one out? Well, the other day I had lost something very important. Okay, it was a financial document, but it still was important. You're saying, "Father, you were just saying the possessions of the world are not important." I know, but and I'm not worried even if somebody takes all my money. The problem is, I was thinking about, then they take your ID, and then you go through all of that account stuff, and you got to spend so much time fixing things if somebody gets a hold of your information. And so I looked, and I looked, and I looked, and I could not find it. And so if you saw my office or you saw my apartment, you'd probably say, "Father, how do you find anything in those places?" Well, the reality is there's certain things that I know that are real important, and they go into just certain places. So those things, I know where they're at, where they're supposed to be. But that night I came here, as I love to do, when the place is nice and quiet and it's just Jesus and me. It's dark, except for the light on him. I come over and I pray for you. I pray for the world. And I pray the prayers that you put in the book back there. But that night, I could not be settled in my prayer. I could not get my mind off of not being able to find that document. And so I felt the Lord nevertheless asking me, just pray. Just pray. Leave that to me. Just pray. I felt it deep in my heart. But as things would go, I said to him, Well, if you find that document, I'll be certainly able to pray much more easily, Lord. So I tried to put it all on him. He knew where it was. He knows all things. He knew right where it was. But here I was trying to put God into a guilt trip. That's what I was doing, guilting him into getting me what I want, and then he'll get what he wants. And yet I couldn't. I stayed and prayed a little bit and could not be undistracted by this. I didn't pray as long as I should, and I certainly didn't pray as attentive as I should. And I got up too early, and I went back and ransacked my little apartment one more time. And after doing that, I was exhausted, and I decided to check the one place I know it's not. I never put things there. You know that place. And there it was, right there where I never would have put it. And I know that God that night, I'm quite sure, did not feel a single bit of guilt. But I sure did. I was guilty of not listening, guilty of not trusting, guilty of not doing what he asked me to do. You see, Judah was committing all kinds of evil when Habakkuk, our first reading today, was crying out to God saying, "Why are you not doing anything?" Because he was talking to them. He was proclaiming to them to stop doing the things they were doing, to start doing what God has asked them to do, and they wouldn't. As it says here, "How long, O Lord? I cry for help, but you do not listen. I cry to you, violence, but you do not intervene. Why do you let me, note the words, see ruin? Why must I look on misery? Destruction and violence before me. There is strife and clamorous discord." So Habakkuk wanted God to act in the manner that Habakkuk wanted God to act, and in the timing that Habakkuk wanted to act, which was now. Do it now, Lord. But God only said this. "Write this down," he said to him. "The vision still has its time," meaning the prophecy that he was given to give to the people. "It presses on to fulfillment. It will not disappoint. If it delays, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not be late. The rash one has no integrity, but the just one, because of his faith, shall live." The rash one has no integrity, but the just one, because of his faith, shall live. So let's now go back to the gospel and look at the first words we may have forgotten because all we have in our head are the last words. All of the apostles ask him, "Lord," or cry to him, "increase our faith." And we know what he says. He goes on to say, "If you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you would say to this mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted over there.'" And we hear in another gospel, I think Matthew, he says, "You could say to that mountain, 'Be uprooted and moved,' and it would move." Now, these are kind of absurd things that he's saying in response, and the reason being is he's trying to make a point. You don't have any faith for me to increase. If you even had a mustard side of faith, I could do something with that. And this is his apostles. He's saying, you guys don't yet have faith. Then he goes on to say basically the same that he said to Habakkuk. He goes on and says, "Who among you would say to your servant who has just come in from plowing and tending sheep and is tired and it's late night praying and wants to just have it easy, 'Come here immediately and take your place at table'? Would he not rather say to him, 'Prepare something for me to eat. Put on your apron, wait on me while I eat and drink. You may eat and drink when I am finished.' Is he grateful to that servant because he did what he was commanded? So should it be with you." So Jesus is saying, stop being so rash with no integrity, no patience. Stop demanding that I keep your commands, but listen to me and answer my commands to you first. If you are faithful, you will keep my commandments, and then, in time, you will feast on what your heart desires. If you do my commands first, your job now is to keep my commandments, to do the work that I have given you to do. And St. Paul says it this way to Timothy. He's talking to his son Timothy, who he has ordained. So it's basically the bishop talking to the priest, saying, God did not give us a spirit of cowardice, so do not be ashamed of your testimony to the Lord. And then he goes on to say, bear your share of hardship for the gospel. This is your work right now. For me the other night, that was to pray undistracted, to entrust to God my worries about something I was missing, and to pray for much more important things than a little document, to pray for you, to pray for the whole community of Saline, to pray for the world, to pray for our state, our poor state of Michigan. We are up against something right now that we really do not have adequate resources to overcome. Those who are promoting Prop 3 have millions and millions of more dollars than we have to spend on all of this. We have no way to make enough profit to defeat anything on our own. And that's the point, on our own. We are unprofitable servants. On our own. We are like St. Andrew. Lord, 5 loaves and 2 fish, and 10,000 people to feed. How can we do this? Andrew, give those to me. That's how you will do this. So if we keep on serving the Master in prayer, in service, which is almsgiving, whether it's a gift of resources or it's a gift of myself, it's almsgiving, and fasting, putting away all of my desires, training my body to just be focused on the Lord. Then there'll be one thing that we are absolutely sure of, We aren't sure how the prayers are going to be answered, but there's one thing that we would be absolutely sure of, and that is this, that we are keeping the Master's commands. That I could be sure of if I do these 3 things. So we are doing what we are obliged to do right now. We're obliged to be here, to beg the Lord for all the needs. That's why I love crying babies. They actually remind us of what we're doing here. We're here crying, begging the Lord, please, please hear. However, and this is hard to hear again, but God is not obliged to do anything. He's not obliged. But we know that if we strive to do His will, He loves nothing more than to listen and answer our prayers. Give me your 5 loaves. Give me your 2 fish. See what I can do with them. I can't do anything if you don't give them. Increase our faith, they cried. This is my prayer for you and for me, that God will increase our faith in 3 specific ways, and they're very important. Number 1, my faith that He loves me. My faith in the fact that He loves me. Increase my faith, Lord, to know you love me. 2, to know you hear my prayer. I know you're hearing it. And 3, you will answer it. I know you will answer it. But I know it will be your way and in your time. But I pray that those 3 will increase in us. That I know your love, I know you hear my prayer, I know you will answer my prayer, and I don't need it to be the way I want it answered. I can have confidence that you not only can answer it, but you will answer it even better than I might want. I do not need to do God's job and tell Him how He could do His job better. Do not I need to try to guilt Him into doing what I want. I just need to do what I know He wants me to do and trust that He is going to do what I know He wants to do, which is actually more than I would ever dare ask for, which is what we prayed for. One of my favorite collects, or the first prayer of Mass, is today's. And I'm just going to read a part of it again and listen to how the Lord set this whole homily up. He gave it to us, which was actually, Almighty and ever-living God, who in abundance of your kindness surpass the merits and desires of those who entreat you. Pour out your mercy upon us to pardon what conscience dreads, pardon with the things that I'm just afraid to even come in front of you with, and give what prayer does not dare to ask. God has a lot more in store for us than we would believe, and it's unbelievable. We just need to ask Him in trust. Trust in His love, trust He hears my prayer, trust He will answer my prayer in a better way than even I ask.